Historic Houses live visit maj 2021. Första gången i Sverige. Welcome to all the viewers of European Historic Houses live visit May 21. Also, I would like to start with thanking the European Historic Houses for this fantastic project, which has given us the chance of traveling around Europe and seeing all those lovely houses, especially when we're not allowed to travel anywhere. So, welcome to Claestorp. This is the mansion belonging to the Claestorp estate. And my name is Jan Lewenhaupt. I am the owner. I am the managing director of the estate. The estate consists of 12,000 acres, which is 4,600 hectares. And the main line of income is forestry, agriculture, real estate, shooting, and also we produce electricity from both hydro plant and from solar systems. This means that we are self-supplying on both electricity but also on heating, which is done from a central wood chip burning facility. The manor as such, as you can see it here, is from the 18th century, but the history of the farm is much older. The estate began 1434, first time mentioned in history, and what's interesting is that it has been inherited since and never sold, which means that in a couple of years' time it is going to be a 600-year line, consecutive line of ownership. The old manor burns down 1753. And they start commencing the building of the house as you see it now, between 1754 and 1758. This was considered rather a feat to do that in 4 years, because you have to start by building a brick factory, you have to get out the wood that binds the bricks together, and all wood was drenched in urine. Why drench it in urine? Because that was a fireproof system to avoid, because ammoniac doesn't flame. How they managed to find all the urine, I don't want to know. Between the wing and the manor, there was an added on a serving corridor, a serving construction, because from the beginning the kitchen was in the wing. This was of course a fire, to avoid the chance of fire, but also I think they realized the food was quite lukewarm by the time it came to the dining room of the mansion. Therefore they added on in the 1800s. Okay, let's go in. The architect who built the manor was called Kronstedt, and he was given the liberty of constructing a tiled stone system, which meant that the entire middle floor, the second floor, the main floor, was heated only by the fire system, which went in channels, smoke channels around the house, which was considered a unique thing and was patented. And this is the prototype for the Swedish kakelugn, the tiled stone construction. So please join me in the house. Welcome into the mansion, Claestorp Mansion. First of all, I would just like to point out that obviously you might understand there is a great interest in shooting in the family, as always been. Also, we were a very major player in the creating of the modern shooting in Sweden. We ran a school for future gamekeepers. We introduced various games, including fallow deer in Sweden. They all even went to America and brought home turkey, didn't go very well, quail, didn't go very well, and 12 alligators, which most likely froze to death on the first morning in Sweden. So, now we're going to go up to the main floor, and most likely the stairs are going to be the problem, because the walls are so thick, as you see, that the Wi-Fi has a problem here. Please follow me. The first room I would like to take you into is into the dining room, which was a room that was due to a fire on the attic. The water damage they needed to redecorate this room. So they did it into the fashion of the day, which was in the beginning of the 20th century, as a hall of knights from the old days. So it's very dark, very German, etc. And the details in here I would like to show you is the local carpenter then had to make the crests of the families that had lived here. So the crest you will see occasionally here is from my family, the Lewenhaupt, which means lion head, and therefore the 3 lion heads in the center. Also, the wallpaper here is gilded leather from the Netherlands from the 17th century, and they were found on the attic and then put up here, but no one knew what to do with them, so they glued it to the wall, which of course is impossible with gilded leather because it needs to move. So yes, it has been damaged through the history. The persons you see on the wall, I will just mention one. Frederick I, who was the Prince of Hessen Castle, became King of Sweden and became a friend of the owners of Claestorp. But before that, my ancestor had managed to make his sister pregnant and they were not married. So it wasn't successful because the father, Charles, dragged the poor pregnant girl around the room, so she had miscarriage and died. But the father of a child, i.e. my ancestor, was forgiven by Frederick and they later became very good friends. Now we will go into the gallery, which is our one of the 2 main central rooms. Claestorp is quite famous for its collection of portraits, and they are all connected to family or to the era they were in and meant something in the history of our family. Before that, I would just like to mention the typical Swedish way of floor, where they actually painted it. Once again, we didn't have the money to have, say, oak, or if you remember the outside of the house, which was yellow, that was supposed to be Italian marble, which we could never afford. So we learned how to paint it to look like that. The portraits, I will just stop by 1 or 2, not all of them, don't worry, this is not going to be as long as you think. First of all, Queen Margaret of Sweden, who was the married to the first king after we managed to throw out the Danes in the 1500s. And she was my ancestral mother, ancestral aunt, and she became the mother of 11 of the Gustav I's children. The 10 she was the mother of. They all married very wisely, right, left and center in the European houses, which means that today all the royal families in Europe are connected to my ancestral aunt. Below that, I will just show you Hans Jakob von Königsmarck. What is his claim to history? He was one of the architects behind the plundering of Prague in 1648. And it became the start of a wealth of Sweden because the amount of loot we managed to plunder from Prague and take back to Sweden was enormous. He requisitioned 30,000 oxen to take home all the loot and the silver and the whatnot. His son then became famous after being the man who blew up Parthenon, the palace of Athens. Please, we will now go into the blue salon, which isn't as blue as it used to be because it was very, very dark blue from the beginning, but thereafter it's always become called the blue salon. I would just like to stop by here and show you the builder of the house, Claes Stromberg, and he was married to Ulrika Katarina Lewenhaupt, and when they built this manor and they had no children because their children had died at early age, they inherited it to her nephew. Therefore, the name Lewenhaupt enters here ridiculously enough on the 4th of July 1776, which the Americans think is day 1 in history, but for us it was just in the middle of a long line of ownership, etc. As you can see, all relatives, royals, etc. But also, I want to add that the generations continue. So in this family there are very strong artistic talents, and these are my 3 children done in bronze by my sister. So I just wanted to point out how brilliant we are. Now we will go into the Napoleonic room, and you will all wonder why it is called the Napoleonic room, but you will soon be aware of it. The first thing you see in here is this enormous painting consisting of his second Lewenhaupt, this is 1820s, and his enormous amount of children. They became famous later on because they were a part of the Swedish Industrial Revolution. They started hundreds of companies, built railroads, pulp factories, etc., etc. But not only did they do that, they also became part of European history, which is why there is an original painting of Napoleon III. Before Napoleon III became Napoleon III, he was in exile in London. In order to get back and take power when needed in 1848, he borrowed the passport of one of the Lewenhaupt brothers on the big painting and traveled in as Lewenhaupt and became self-appointed, more or less, elected anyway, emperor. And as a thank you for that, we have a picture here of Napoleon III. Above the two doors on the side here, just to show you that the tradition of painting portraits of the owner and his wife has continued. So this is a picture of us with today's owners, Cecilia, my wife, and myself, painted some years ago when we looked young still. Now we would like to go to a room called the Fur Market. Follow me, please. The wooden floors are actually quite amazing because the size difference between each tile is quite significant, and we still managed to get it straight without the lines going on. So the competence in those days was enormous. Welcome in. From the beginning, this room was the owner's, the countess's bedroom, but it later became a salon. One of the things in this room I would like to point out is the wallpaper, which was one of the factories my industrial ancestors built, a wallpaper factory in papier-mâché with our crest. Interestingly enough, the blue is still as blue as it was 150 years ago, so there must be a lot of arsenic in it, so I don't scratch here. And this wallpaper factory later became the first pulp factories in Sweden, and pulp, of course, was one of our biggest export successes ever. In this room, apart from other things, we have a cabinet of curiosity because none of my ancestors have thrown away anything. So this is the greatest hits of little small detail things. Some are historically important, some are not. Just an example. In this little box, we have a bullet and a piece of cloth. The story is that 1816, my ancestor comes second in a duel. To come second in a duel is a very bad idea. This is the bullet and his uniform, cloth uniform that entered his body, which he died of. So in here you find all kind of medals, special things, stories around each, and they were all written why they are in this room. This bulb still functions and was produced sometime between 1922 and 1926 and was still working a year ago. How do you think a company that produces an everlasting bulb goes on? Not very well. They bankrupted them. This, of course, tour could be done in 3 hours, and it could be done in the 10 minutes we've had to bother you with. So thank you very much for joining us at Claestorp, and please let us know when you want the 3-hour tour. Thank you.